This is the Seahawkers podcast, episode 415. I'm Brandon Schultz of the Military Seahawkers, and joining me, my good buddy and Montana Seahawker, Adam Emmert.
2-1, baby. And that feels pretty damn good considering the bad loss week one. But I think Seahawks fans as a whole, we're all feeling a lot better after that one, yeah?
Yeah, well, 2 back-to-back games of nearly scoring 40 points with your offense. It'll make you feel a little bit better about your team, right?
Yeah, especially when you look at that offense and you're like, wow, there's meat on the bone here still. Like, these guys aren't like peaking at all, but able to score a crap ton of points.
Not just, you talk about meat on the bone, but I think you say that in terms of spreading the ball out to playmakers. But then when you go back, I think the one impressive thing about the win over the Panthers is that just how many players ended up being out on the offensive line and still able to run the ball effectively, able to protect Geno Smith well enough. If they're able to do that consistently as we go forward, sure, it makes you optimistic that, hey, once you start to get healthy again on the offensive line with your 2 tackles coming back, and maybe we don't even need Phil Haynes to come back the way the young guard played.
Yeah, I mean, Bradford, he's been pretty effective when he's been out there. He did get dinged up a little bit last week, so we'll see what that means. And I mean, it sounds like he's probably going to be available to play. I'm guessing, but let's give the offensive line and the backups like all the credit in the world. That was impressive. That's now 2 weeks in a row where they really held up. And again, like you said, it's not like the Carolina Panthers defensive line is filled with world beaters, but there's a couple dudes that can play there. And it wasn't a gimme. Like, every week's hard in the NFL. So, even though it was maybe lesser competition, you're looking at it and you're going, if you're playing a team that you really think is below you, and I know that sounds terrible, but beneath you, let's just say they're beneath.
They're worse. They're a terrible team that they should deserve to lose. Right.
Yeah, you should handle them. And the game was close throughout, but at the end of the day, they put their foot on the throttle in the fourth quarter, and they did. They handled the Panthers, and it was awesome to see. And pretty much led by the offense, defense having some moments as well, though.
I think the fact that they had Andy Dalton, and yes, he ends up throwing the ball 58 times, gets 34 completions for 361 yards, 2 touchdowns. If Bryce Young is in the game and the game plays out similarly, he's not able to hang in there and keep throwing, and the way that Andy Dalton's able to hang in the pocket, I thought that ended up benefiting the Panthers overall.
Oh, for sure. I mean, Andy Dalton was an upgrade for them in that game. I mean, someday maybe Bryce Young will be better than Andy Dalton at this stage of his career. But as of right now, he's a dink and ducker that really struggles to push the ball downfield and makes rookie mistakes. And that's something that you saw that Andy Dalton didn't do. He went out there and he made veteran throws and made veteran plays, even with his legs at times, and really helped keep Carolina in the game. I think this would have been a more decisive victory with Bryce Young at the helm.
Are you concerned at all? I saw one stat here this past week that there's only 2 teams in NFL history that allowed more than 27 points in their first 3 games and more than 300 yards passing. Only 2 defenses in NFL history. The Seahawks, now one of those teams.
Okay. I mean, yards are yards to a degree. I mean, even in this game, they managed to keep the time of possession close. So, even while giving up yards, the offense was able to keep the ball enough to kind of balance that out. No, I don't worry too much about that, especially this last 5 yards of NFL offense, like when you start throwing yards into the category of, whoa, no team's ever done this. Like, I don't know. It's just so skewed. All the defenses are struggling at times, even the best ones right now with the way the league is.
I do think that it is concerning in the fact that it's not like they've played 3 top quarterbacks these first 3 weeks. They got healthy Matt Stafford in week 1. You got Andy Dalton, and then you have Jared Goff, which, I mean, he's not to downplay Jared Goff at all, but it's not one of the top 5 passers in the league that you're worrying about here. So I think there's actually things that I'm more concerned about with the defense. But hey, on the positive side, they shut down Miles Sanders. The Panthers decide not to run Chuba Hubbard for whatever reason. and the running game gets stuffed. And now the Seahawks have a top 5 rushing defense.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the most impressive parts for the defense. A third consecutive week of stopping the run. A lot of people would say, hey, okay, it's time to recognize that as being very good. Again, they got me last year after 4 games, so they're going to have to do a lot more than that, but it's a great start. And Jaron Reed and the pass rush came alive in this game too, and that was really fun.
Yeah, Jaron Reed, 5 pressures on the day. Mario Edwards Jr., 9 pressures, 6 hurries, 3 quarterback hits. That's pretty impressive, especially from a guy. When Mario Edwards was signed to this team, I did not think that he would be the one to get more pressures than Draymond Jones.
No, certainly not on that interior of the defensive line. But then again, I mean, they put a lot of attention on Draymond, and that does free up guys like Mario Edwards. But he was a wrecking ball in the second half, man. Impressive game by him. And then don't forget Boye Mafe, man. He had a crap ton of pressures. What do you have, 49? 70,000?
He had 7 official pressures. And I thought at one point, I remember Steve Rabel saying he had double digits, but maybe he was combining that with Jaron Reed or something. And either way, he had a bunch from Mafe, Reed, Edwards. He even had Miles Adams with 2 pressures. Jordan Brooks had 3. Uchenna Nwosu had 4. As a team, 36 pressures accounted for by Pro Football Focus stats.
Yeah, that's a ton, man. That's getting after the quarterback, and we're going to need a lot more of that.
I mean, they did drop back 58 times, but yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see if that carries over next week, because that's been one of the weaker things on the team so far was pass rush. You heard Pete Carroll talking about how they were going to have to change some tactics and a few more blitzes, a few more stunts, getting a little more creative. That was cool to see. Also cool to see from the defense that they played up on players for the most part throughout the game and weren't terrified of giving up the deep ball and rallied to the ball and kept a lot of gains on the shorter side of things. And that was awesome, man. And I think that was a big factor into holding them to mostly field goals throughout the game.
Well, one of the things that I felt like we saw from the defense was defenders being around the ball more. And yes, Riq Woolen still isn't out there. Artie Burns in for Kobe Bryant, and Artie gave up some big throws downfield, but I felt that he made some big plays too. I felt like he was on top of the offensive player more often than he wasn't. And I guess if he wasn't, he had multiple yards of separation. So it was kind of a boomer bust thing, but that also I think played out in the time of possession of this too, because like you mentioned, it worked out relatively well for the Seahawks. No big, long scoring drives for the Panthers. And a lot of that was because they were playing from behind in the second half. So they were trying to move the ball through the air rather than on the ground. And I think that played into it too. It was just a lot of things in this game that I don't know if you could take it away and say this is what the defense is like now. Part of it because of injuries. And I mentioned Draymond Jones. He goes out to injury and he hasn't been practicing this week. So we'll have to see if he's able to play more in this game coming up against the Giants. But I'm even wait and see on this run game business.
Yeah, I'm not sold yet either, man. Like I'm with you on that. And this Giants team will be an interesting one to see how that stacks up there, especially if Saquon ends up playing. But just hats off to the team as a whole. The offense was so fun throughout the game. I mean, even though they were settling for, 5 straight field goals at one point there, 4, however many it was.
Yeah.
There's a crap ton in a row. They still were moving the ball up and down the field kind of at will. And you never felt like the Panthers were just going to come out and just stop them. And they were having a well-rounded game with Ken Walker really tearing it up, man. He had a monster day, and then Gino's just doing Gino things.
Yeah, field goals on the day. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight field goal possessions on scores for the Seahawks. And it felt like that helped keep the Panthers hanging around a lot longer than it should have been, because they only had 3 scoring drives to the Seahawks 5 through those 3 quarters. And it wasn't until Kenneth Walker gets the 1-yard touchdown and put them up 22-13 to where it felt like they were going to start pulling away. And then they were able to stack those touchdown drives in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, once they kind of got that 9-point lead, right? You're going, oh boy, okay, that's at least 2 scores. And even though it's the smallest 2 scores that you can have, it was still 2 scores. And they did, like you said, finally punch it in the second half, and that was awesome to see. Because if it would have been a lot more of the same throughout the second half, I think we're having a very different conversation about the offense today. But let's take those 5 straight field goals, Brandon, and let's not look at them as a negative. Let's look at them as a positive. Jason Myers banging 5 in a row through and hit his point afters. Big bounce back game for Jason Myers and the special teams.
It was good. I hope he continues that. I whatever he had to do, whether it was put all of the golf tees into his left pocket, whether it was turn the calendar over to 2024 instead of 2023, whatever it was that he had in his brain, that's fixed now moving forward.
Yeah, man. However you get rid of the shanks, just do it. And it looked that he had it under control, at least for this last game. That was cool. But like we were saying, well-rounded attack. I mean, DK caught a bunch of balls. Tyler had a bunch of clutch footballs. Tight ends showed up big. I mean, Noah Fant had a nice game. Parkinson, a couple big catches. It just, you never know where this offense is going to go. And that's one of the best parts about what Shane Waldron's doing right now. It's very balance, spreading it around to a lot of different guys, creative formations. We've talked about the 2 tight end, like, I don't know what we're going to call it, like pistol sidecar or whatever, like super cool.
Right.
And doing fun stuff out of that. Gino, overall, a solid game, even with a pick that was bad. That was a bad pick.
That was a bad pick.
He got baited on that one. And then actually had 2 other throws that I was like, man, I don't know about that. One was
Tyler Lockett in the end zone with the pass breakup.
Oh, and okay. Then there's 4. And then there's the one where he rolls out right and throws across his body and somehow completes it to DK.
Yeah. That was a little iffy. It wasn't, I don't remember a defender being right there. It was just more like, I don't want to see him doing that routinely.
Right, because that's just one of those cardinal sins of quarterback play. Like, you shouldn't do that. And then, he had an out route for JSN that the defender jumped and damn near had it. And that was one thing that I noticed. His pick came while targeting JSN on a slant, and they jumped the hell out of that. And then he almost threw a second pick in the game on that out route to JSN that they jumped all over. So these corners and everybody, they're all sitting on JSN short on these little quick routes. And I think that's part of why he's having a hard time getting going.
I think that they need to look toward throwing to him more downfield. And if they are going to give him that much attention, I think it's going to open things up for the tight ends in certain spots, because we saw when they were throwing to Fant and Parkinson, there was so much space that they just weren't accounting for them. And I think part of it was how Waldron was using them in the blocking game, making it look as if they're coming off the line and then blocking and then getting out into space. I think about the play that ended up setting up the Ken Walker series of, 3 straight carries inside the 5-yard line. Fant gets open. He starts out blocking. They actually dropped 8 players into coverage, only rushed 3, and Fant was still wide open by, you had people doubling Tyler. They had a linebacker
Brackett
on
and
Walker.
DK.
Yeah, Brackett and DK. Yeah, it was just they had so many other guys out there and still weren't able to account for Noah Fant.
Yeah, there's a lot of weapons on this team, and the opponents are struggling to match up with all of those, and we need to take advantage of that each and every week, because we are giving up so many points per game on defense right now. I want to say it's like 22nd. It's bad.
It's bad,
whatever it is. So they need to tighten it up, man, because you can't just rely on hanging 37 points a game week in, week out. Not that I'm complaining this week. It was a fun football game. It was a win. I enjoyed my time there. Thank you, Pete. But I think we really are going to need to tighten it up on the defensive end here still. But I do think they're on the right track.
You're not wrong about tightening it up. Do you want to have a guess at the red zone scoring percentage? When the opponent gets inside the red zone against the Seahawks, the percentage of times that team scores a touchdown on the Seahawks defense?
Oh, it's got to be something atrocious, like 64%.
It's significantly higher than 64%.
Okay, I was trying to be kind. All right, 87%,
100%. Every single time the opponent gets in the red zone against the Seahawks defense, they have scored a touchdown this season.
That has hurt my eyeballs so much, and the trauma of it has hit so hard as a fan that I am in complete denial and imagined some red zone stops somewhere along the season here.
There was a couple times where the offense has gotten close, like inside, like between the 25 and the 20, to where they had to settle for a field goal, but that's like twice this season. So yeah, I couldn't believe it when I saw that it was at 100%. And then I had to go back and verify, because I was like you. I was like, no, they had to have made at least one stop, and this number is wrong. The number's not wrong.
Yeah, that's a recipe for disaster. That's terrible situational football. So we'll see how that goes there. But I think one guy that does show that he has promised to help fix that is Witherspoon from this last game, man. I think it'd be remiss not to talk about his game. That was definitely a game that the Panthers like, all right, Riq, let's see it. And they challenged him early and often. And I thought he held up pretty damn well overall.
Yeah, this is one thing that I focused on in 3 in 3 out this week, because there was a stat in terms of coverage with both Devin Witherspoon and Artie Burns out on the field. Each one of those players was targeted 13 times. Only 5 receptions to Devin Witherspoon, 10 to Artie Burns, and yards after the catch was significant. 109 yards total for Artie Burns, 65 of those coming after the catch. 31 yards on 5 catches for Witherspoon, only 11 yards after the catch.
Yeah, it sticks out when you watch him too. The tackling is phenomenal, and it's something that showed up on his college tape. So it's just kind of verifying itself here. I don't think that's a fluke. I think that's exactly who somebody like Witherspoon is. And that's part of the marks of a budding lockdown corner. And he's really showed the fight that he has and how sticky he is in coverage. I mean, he's still getting beat now and then. Thielen got him on a nasty curl on one and just a couple, but geez Louise, it's learning on the job. And I think he's doing a heck of a job. And I do trust in Pete and Clint to, train up that significant skill set, make him everything he can be.
The other part of that, you talked about how the tackling showed up. It showed out in the stats too. In terms of stops on the day, there were 3 guys with 5 stops total. You're going to expect somebody on the defensive line, because the guys play on the interior. Usually, they're right there to be able to make a stop on a run play. So Jaron Reed had 5. You'll usually see a linebacker who has a significant number of stops, because they're also in those gaps, able to keep those runs and passes to short gains. And so Jordan Brooks had 5. But for Devin Witherspoon to also be among that group as a corner, that's I'm very optimistic and happy to see those numbers.
You betcha. And that's a player that can help a lot in the red zone going forward here. And then especially when you pair it with Tariq when he gets back in. Do we know on that this week so far? Like, have we heard anything?
Yes. Riq Woolen, full participant in practice this week. Also with Jamal Adams, a full participant in practice.
Yeah, I was saving that for the Giants talk here, but that's exciting news, man. And I can't wait to talk a little bit more about Jamal. Maybe it's time. Is it time?
It's time. I think it's time.
Okay. He's back. He's back. What else is there to say? And if you're not excited as a Seahawks fan, I mean, I do get it, but you should be. You should be excited. I know that the injuries and everything don't help him perform up to the contract, and it's been a bit disappointment a bit in those ways, but it's not because of the quality of the player that he is or the effort. So I am totally stoked to see him back out on the field. That's a big recovery and a big moment just for a human being to be able to do that. And then to think about what he can bring to this team and the havoc that he wreaks on defense. I mean, he's just an F to play up kind of guy, and couldn't come at a better time with Julian Love nursing a hamstring a little bit. So yeah, exciting to hear that Jamal will be back.
Yeah, Julian Love, limited participant in practice on Thursday, along with Artie Burns, both of them dealing with hamstring injuries. So yeah, when you talk about injuries in the secondary, Trey Brown still not able to practice coming off the concussion. Kobe Bryant still with a toe injury. I think that with Riq and Jamal coming back, that would be big. And I would think that Julian able to play too, but just to see once these guys get healthy, how they're going to use the secondary. And gosh, I can't even fault Seahawks fans for maybe even being a little bit pessimistic on Jamal. Like, oh, well, how long are we going to get to have him? I understand that feeling because it does get frustrating when you have a guy that you know has a lot of talent that hasn't been able to be on the field for a significant amount of time. But we got to enjoy the time that he's on the field.
That's exactly it. I mean, you can focus on the negative or the positive here. The positive is that he's overcome this injury. He looks good. He's fired up. He's ready to go. Pete's fired up about it. And he's a Swiss Army knife kind of player. And I'm just looking forward to it, man. I can't wait to see what new and exciting ways Pete's got cooked up to use Jamal Adams.
I hope that when they surgically repaired his fingers, like they added some kind of extra device in there, that hopefully we can count on him for some interceptions too.
Yeah, I didn't know if you knew, but they're like little mini vacuum cleaners with suction cups on the end, and they're right there on his fingers.
We needed that.
Yeah, that's why he wears gloves all the time, because he doesn't want nobody to know. So you heard it here first.
It's about time we get these medical, what do you call us?
Cyborg stuff. Yeah, you bet. Let's go down that road.
We need Jamal Adams cyborg, to play for 10 more years for this defense.
Yeah, that would work. That'd be fine. I could take that, but an exciting piece to get back. Having Riq back potentially this week, it'll be exciting to see those two young corners go to work together with Diggs and Adams. And, of course, Bobby leading the way in the middle of the defense. This is a Giants team, too, that this defense, while middling at this point, and that's being a little bit kind, this is the type of get-right game for a defense if you've ever had one.
Things are kind of stacking up in terms of jinxes, though, for the Seahawks. I think the Giants are 0-5 on Monday Night Football, if I remember that stat correctly. I think the Seahawks...
Danny Dimes is like 1-12 in primetime.
It's something brutal. And the Seahawks have some kind of 6-game winning streak going on when they go to the Meadowlands. I don't like too many streaks going in opposite directions because it makes me nervous.
Yeah, I can get that. But there are some trends that make me feel quite positive. I don't know that the Giants offense is 31st in the league in scoring. Like, that bodes well. That makes me feel like we can get a couple of red zone stops. How about the fact that they're even slightly worse than the Seahawks on defense, man? They're giving up 32 points per game on defense, man. So, and then also you look at, the Seahawks and the way their defense is played. They're not so bad in the yards department. It's the points per game department, right? So you're kind of looking at that. It doesn't quite gel. Not for the Giants. It all freaking gels. 28th, 25th, 24th. You go down the list of all of their numbers, and they're in the bottom half of the league. This team has had exactly one good half of football against the Arizona Cardinals. Otherwise, it's been pretty abysmal, especially their defense.
I don't know how much to hang that on the defense, though, because, okay, they probably shouldn't have given up 28 points to the Arizona Cardinals, but they've played the 49ers and they've played the Cowboys, and those two teams are good. I still don't know what to think about the Cowboys after they shut out the Giants 40-0 in the first week of the season. And then they've kind of, then they lost to the Cardinals themselves. So maybe we don't know anything about any of these teams except the 49ers.
Yeah, I mean, it is still early and all of that, but I didn't understand what people saw in this Giants team last year. I thought they snuck up on some people, won some tight games, and, managed to grab a low wild card round. Like, good, congratulations. Okay, fine. But not a good team. Danny Dimes, I have no idea why they paid him what they paid him. He looks like it this year. He looks like the guy you thought he was. And it's just, I know it's frustrating for Giants fans. I mean, they're all totally fed up. I mean, he had the one half where he looked like that $40 million a year type quarterback, but that's the problem with him, is that he has the talent. It's in there. There's glimpses of it now and then, but there's no consistency with it. And he reverts back to being a D-level quarterback. And if they can get Saquon back, that'll help him for sure. I mean, a dynamic player. He's probably their one guy on the offense that is making big chunk plays in their offense this year. Nobody else is.
No, Wan'Dale Robinson has been hurt, and he did come back here this past game. He's the one guy that could Adam Thielen this Seahawks defense. But other than that, at tight end, you have to worry about Darren Waller, who came over from the Raiders.
He's good.
He's good. But if
he's not being used by Danny, yeah.
Not too much. He's still their leading receiver, though, with 132 yards on 12 receptions. So actually, he's been targeted the most. He's had the most catches and has the most yards. But even still, it's not by a lot.
He's not an explosive player for them right now because of either the way they're running their offense or, the way Daniel sees the field or however it is. But, it's a lot of possession type stuff, right? And dink and dunk stuff. Like there's nobody that's taken the lid off of a defense here.
No, and I don't even think with Wan'Dale being back that's necessarily something you have to worry about. I think the guy that they got to do those types of things is Paris Campbell, but that's the guy who's struggled with health the majority of his career. And in the way that they've been using him, they've actually been using him more as the run little shallow routes and dump it off. He has 11 catches only for 47 yards. So 4.3 yards per reception. You would expect that to be the guy who you would send deep down the field.
Yeah, he's traditionally known as a burner, right?
Right.
I don't know, man. Dable's got his hands full with this offense. I have no idea why they let him re-sign that quarterback. It almost feels like ego, right? That he was just like, oh, yeah, see, I fixed him. I'll make you even better than next year.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, man, I don't know, dude.
They aren't running the ball a whole lot with Daniel Jones, it seems. I guess I say that, but he does have 107 yards rushing compared to Saquon, but Saquon's only played 2 games this year and Jones has had 3. That's one thing that I tend to worry about when it comes to Daniel Jones is that the Seahawks, we had the opportunity to face a running quarterback in Bryce Young. He ends up sitting out. So we haven't had that test necessarily for this defense yet. But if all you have to do is worry about Daniel Jones, I mean, I don't think you have to worry about Matt Breida or Gary Brightwell beating you. So if Saquon's not playing and you just have to focus on stopping Jones as a runner, then I'm a whole lot less concerned.
I remember Breida having a couple good games as a Niner. Like that's a name that pops up. I'm like, oh, okay, well, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe he'll run it a little bit. But then again, the defenses look good against the run as a whole. So I'm kind of hanging my hat on that. Yeah, Daniel Jones's feet. Sure, you bet. Like he still runs it now and then, and they know how to use that. They call design quarterback runs and all that. But I mean, the league has kind of caught on too. They're like, all right, so you dink and dunk and then run it with the quarterback now and then. Got it. Okay, everybody play up and we don't really worry about getting beat. Do a lot of single high stuff. We said last week that would be a perfect kind of game for Jamal Adams to come back into against the Panthers because it's a very similar situation offensively. And I mean, yeah, ditto this week. So that's exciting as well.
I don't know if it's necessarily an offense that you can really pin down yet either, because they've had to play from behind so much, when they get their doors blown off against the Cowboys. And then, for the first half of the game against the Cardinals, they have to fight their way back in the second half. I don't know if we've necessarily seen this Giants offense operating as Dable might want to operate it.
Oh, I think I can put a finger on what this Giants offense is. It's bad. It's bad. It's bad at everything. Like, just look at the numbers.
If you can't score points early, then you're going to dig yourself into some holes.
Yeah, and the Niners last week, they got out on the Giants early, like you were talking about, and it does put a ton of pressure on a guy who isn't really known for being Captain Comeback in Daniel Jones as well, and winning games with your arm and trying to conserve clock and all of that stuff. That makes the Seahawks performance in the red zone offensively this next week all the more important because they should hang points on this team. This should be a game that was very similar to the Carolina game. It should be very similar to the Niners versus Giants game. Basically, that game was relatively close throughout, and then the Niners broke it open and drubbed them. And that's more or less what happened with us and the Panthers. That's what I see going forward here this week.
One of the things I found interesting was Pete Carroll talking about how he's approaching the week leading up to this game with Geno, but also some of the comments that Pete said himself. Like Geno has history in New York, obviously with the Jets, but also with the Giants because he was a guy who was backing up Eli Manning. And I think a guy that they were kind of hoping might be the successor to Eli with the way they were trying to operate with him toward the end of Eli's career. But Giants fans never really embraced Geno. And Pete Carroll has history in New York too, but he hasn't with the New York Jets. And I wouldn't have thought that he would hold that against the city necessarily, but some of his comments, like he was recognizing that in himself, like he has more going on than Geno does necessarily going into this week. It was weird to hear some of those hints dropped in his press conference this week.
Yeah. I mean, ultimate competitors, right? They always find something. I mean, in that, I took offense to that, right? Or whatever it is that Jordan said in the documentary. And, you said that Giants fans didn't really embrace Geno, and I'm not sure that that's completely fair. I mean, that's kind of drumming up a narrative to a degree. I mean, they weren't ready to be done with Eli, and they broke the streak in a weird way. McAdoo was obviously a dumpster fire as a head coach. I mean, when were they going to wrap their arms around the guy that just, benched Eli for like no reason, was put in for Eli for like no reason?
Maybe that was more on the coach than on the city. Okay. I'll give you that.
Yeah. Yeah. But nevertheless, he didn't really get a shot there and took his talents down to the Chargers, and now he's here kicking ass. So I'd like to see him get the dub. He did get his revenge tour last year against the Giants when the Seahawks beat the Giants. And I feel like the game's going to be very similar to that one. And it's odd to see that the Vegas point spread is only Seahawks -1. So I mean, get you're on the road and the 3 points and everything for being at home, but like I would have expected the Seahawks to be like -6.5 or something like that. I think this is a little more lopsided than something.
I think part of the thing that plays into that though is just, again, you look at those first 3 games for the Giants and it's hard to really peg what this team is. I think they still have talent on the defensive side. Yeah. But again, when you're asking Daniel Jones to play from behind the first 3 games of the season, it's setting him up to throw more interceptions than touchdowns. It's setting him up to, and when you don't have Saquon Barkley against the 49ers. So I think that there's a lot of difficult positions that Jones is being put in through these first 3 weeks. So I think if you're setting a line for the game, you might not necessarily think that it's going to go exactly how it's gone for the first 3 weeks. And like I was saying, like this defense for the Giants, I think they have some talent here. So there could be some things to worry about. Like I would, even though they've performed well enough through these first 3 weeks with kind of a patchwork offensive line, there is a time you have to wonder, like, is a guy like Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams, a pair like that, are they going to be able to really make this Seahawks offense struggle because of that talent that they have centered in that defensive line?
It's possible. And then you have somebody like Thibodeau who's completely underperforming. Like the Giants fans are completely pissed off about his play this year. I think he only has 1 sack on the year.
1 sack, only 4 pressures. But in a game like this is the type of game where, maybe he could find a way to flip the switch.
If I hadn't seen this group of offensive linemen, 1s and 2s, play this well through 3 weeks to this point, I would say, yeah, I'm with you. I'm really afraid of that. But I do think they're going to be able to hold their own. They'll have some moments, no doubt about it. I mean, it's tough when you're, just like you said, shoestringing together a line. But I really do think that they've got a formula figured out. I think Andy Dickerson has these guys ready to go, and their game plan with Waldron really helps to protect those players as well. So I'm not too worried about the Giants defensive line. But it's funny you were mentioning, they don't set up Daniel Jones for success, like he's always playing from behind. I guess just as a Seahawks fan, apparently I just forget what it's like to not have a quarterback who plays with a bad defense and still wills his team to basically 2-1 with excellent play. Like that, maybe I just take it for granted.
Maybe that's part of it. And yeah, sorry, Giants fans, you have Daniel Jones and we have a superior quarterback in Geno Smith that you could have had because he used to be on your team. But I do enjoy the way that Geno is able to, he's more resilient than it seems like Daniel Jones might be.
I mean, not that Daniel Jones can't become more resilient. He's still a relatively young player in comparison to Geno. It took Geno a while to build that skill set, no doubt about it. But I sure am glad that we have Geno at his number rather than Daniel Jones at his number. I mean, Geno's being paid less than Daniel, right?
I believe so. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
I would have to think.
Mm-hmm. John Schneider is a fucking genius. Thank you to that guy. I love him.
Yeah. He's done okay. Whereas, he overpaid for Draymond, but he got a good deal on Geno Smith. So it balances
out. You
out.
can't say that about Draymond yet.
I'm ready to say it about Draymond. Games. I was not big on the signing when it happened because of the fact that he was not known for playing run defense, and then to get him and then not really have much in terms of pass rush. I've been very disappointed with Draymond.
Hey, it hasn't looked good early. No doubt about it. I'm not going to take that away from you, but geez Louise, man, it's been 3 games. Cool your jets. It's going to be okay. Let him heal up. We'll get to the bye week and we'll see a new Draymond. Have some faith. Where's positive Brandon? What happened to that man?
I can be down on one free agent signing. I can also be up and give general manager John Schneider some credit for going to get Evan Brown in the offseason and not drafting John Michael Schmitz. So who has struggled here relatively for the first 3 games of the season.
Yeah, true fact. I mean, Evan Brown's been pretty damn good. You got to be excited about that.
And he's been the one healthy guy on the offensive line too. So that also has played out well.
Yeah, a big deal there. And I expect all of those acquisitions and signings from John Schneider this last year to go out and put the thump on the freaking Giants. I think this is a 2-score win, man. I don't often say stuff like that, but I think this is like a 13-point victory. That's how it feels to me.
I know it feels that way. I'm worried about jinxing it, and that this is going to be another one of those, clinch up your backside games where you're counting on them to come back late for no good reason. And I don't know.
If they were at home, I'd be more worried, I think.
Well, that's true. I mean, it is in our Lumen Field East stadium.
That's exactly right.
Lots of good things happen in that stadium for the Seahawks. And so, you know what? Why should I even be worried?
I don't know, man. Take a load off, kick your feet up.
Why are we not talking about a 3-score victory instead of a 2-score victory?
Now let's not get cocky, man. Come on. Come on now. Let's not be absurd here. But shoot, if the Seahawks team could be
19 points at least in terms of a win.
There you go. Okay. Because I do think that the Seahawks team could be league average in points this week. I do, which is like 21, 22 points. I think they can get there. I think if they keep the Giants to right about there, it's a 2-score game. If not 3, maybe even 4. Who knows? Maybe it'll be a 70 burger.
If only we could score 70 points like a certain offense. I don't know. The Giants defense isn't 70 points bad.
Well, I didn't think the Broncos one was, but it surely was that week anyways. I don't think we're hanging 70 or anything like that. No, but I think they're going to be a lot closer to that 37 mark than they're going to be to 18 points or something like that.
There are good players on this Giants defense that I would be concerned about, but nothing more than what we've seen already. And they've been able to handle opposing teams like the Lions and the Carolina Panthers defense. I think that either one of those defenses I was more worried about than the Giants defense. So are you saying that you're not counting on the Seahawks offense to score 30 plus?
I think I'm saying that they're going to, but I don't know that we're going to need to. One of the interesting parts is that with Wink Martindale as the coordinator, I mean, they blitz a crap ton, right? And you think about where Geno has kind of, been really good this year. It's been in the quick game, and when free guys have been coming at him, he's made a lot of great throws and decisions under pressure. And so if they want to stick to that MO and try to bring the house, Geno will eat their lunch.
That has to continue, though, those good decisions. And we've seen some questionable decisions like we talked about in the early part of the show. It could end up biting him at some point.
Well, not every decision is going to be a winner. I mean, he's not going to go 100 for.
I'm just saying that if they start blitzing early, Geno throws a pick. If it puts the Giants in a good spot to where they can continue to put that kind of pressure on Geno, it could make it a whole lot more difficult early on in the game to where you do start to worry. And if they can pin their ears back and really go after Geno,
with their non-existent pass rush and an offense that can't string together any sort of consistency, no, I don't see the Giants pulling out ahead by, double digits and making it hard for Geno to rally some massive comeback win. It's just not the way that these rosters are at this moment in time. I'm not seeing it, man. I mean, I'm not saying it can't happen, and I get your worry, but yeah.
Just because you haven't seen it yet doesn't mean it can't happen, because we haven't seen a Giants defense that has been able to play with any kind of a lead. So that's what I'm saying. If they somehow get points on the board early to where Geno's having to fight through a deficit, and with Martindale able to really put the pressure on via the blitz, maybe you end up having a good day from Thibodeau. Maybe Micah McFadden, who has been a tackling machine and who's had some pressures on the day, is able to get after the quarterback too. Okereke, there's another linebacker who's kind of been, all over the place in terms of tackles for the team. So
good run defender.
Yeah. But if those guys are able to focus more on the pass, it's easy for me to say going into this game, yeah, this is a team that they should blow out. But if things don't go well early, I don't know.
See, I just don't see how, I have no faith in the Giants offense. So let's say all that stuff did go right for the defense.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. I can't see the Giants offense going out there and throwing up 20 quick ones, and all of a sudden you're browning your shorts a little bit.
No, I would be worried about a pick six and a special teams mistake that results in points. Those types of things.
So we're down to rando football things that sometimes happen that, rather than just, okay, this is what we got in terms of what these teams are and where they're headed. And the Giants just don't have the type of team at this point to play any sort of complementary football. So even if they get it going in one small area throughout their team, the rest of it's been so bad that the Seahawks should be able to counter that. And they have shown offensively that they can hang points on anybody. They can.
Okay, well, I'm down to the rando football things analysis part of this conversation. I'm sorry.
Good. You don't have to be, because you know what's great is you should have talked yourself right out of that worry, man. You took it right down there. You figured out where the line might be and what actually scares you. And turns out it's a boogeyman in a closet. Doesn't exist.
And this game, again, is in MetLife and not the Arizona Cardinals Stadium. So I don't even know why I'm worried. That's where those rando football things always seem to happen, not in New York.
That's right. So you should feel good, just like all the rest of the little flockers. Should we see them on the second half of the show? Because if we're down to rando football things happening, we've probably exhausted it. Yeah,
probably. As we get into the second half of the show, Adam, we're recording during the Thursday night football game, and you talk about the Lions defense that the Seahawks faced, and they're just stymieing Jordan Love.
Look pretty good, don't they, at this point?
And we put up 37 on that defense
with a bunch of backup offensive linemen.
Yeah. Okay.
This is looking pretty good so far early, man. You think about it, they are the walking wounded a little bit here, and that stinks. But then again, we have the early bye week. You get past this Giants team. If you can get that dub there, you're 3-1 on the bye. You got Jamal out there, get his feet wet, start getting the rhythm of playing back. And then you come out ripping for your last, 14 games of the season then.
Yeah, we didn't really get into, we got into the injury report a little bit, but Thursday, the guys who didn't practice on Thursday, I mentioned Trey Brown and Kobe Bryant, and I think Draymond Jones, but also Charles Cross sat out with a toe injury. Pete Carroll did say that he's out and running a little bit. DK Metcalf, who sat out with ribs, I would expect him to be back and playing. Phil Haynes sat out practice with a calf injury. Quandre Diggs sat out with a hamstring injury. Jaron Reed out with a quad injury. And then you had your other pass rushers, Uchenna Nwosu with an Achilles injury. Those stink. And Darrell Taylor with a shin injury.
All right. The Nwosu and the Jaron Reed injuries, those scare me a little bit.
Because it's a quad and an Achilles.
And it's to those guys.
At the interior defensive line. As much as we didn't bring up Miles Adams as much, but he had a couple pressures on the day. And it's just not the kind of depth that you want to see out there.
No. Not at this point. I mean, unless Cam Young comes out and has a breakout game. Maybe that's what'll happen.
I saw him out there. I recognize Cam Young.
I'm not saying he did anything bad. I'm just saying something where you go, whoa, holy cow.
And I don't know if we're necessarily, I'm not expecting that from that position.
You're just such a negative Nancy this episode, Brandon.
I'm not negative. I'm just
the 7th round draft or the 6th round or whatever it was. Yeah. 6th round. Nose tackle.
No,
yeah, he's gonna
wasn't
have
he fourth?
He's gonna be the next Aaron Donald next game. How can you not have faith in that? Jeez Louise. Don't be reasonable. You can't have that here.
Wasn't he a 4th round pick?
I don't know.
See, who
once
knows
all
this
that
team?
happens,
Me.
I forget.
Who know? I know this team. He was a 4th round pick.
Again, that kind of all goes out my head after the draft for the most part, because once you're in the league, either you're good or you're not. I don't give a rat, where you were drafted. Just don't care.
Don't know why you held back on censoring yourself there.
Hard telling, not knowing. I don't know. I'm tired, man. It was a long week, and I know you're dragging a bit too.
Yeah, we were both dragging. When you spend a full day traveling back from Seattle, it can take it out of you a little bit.
Yeah, tell me all about it. Then I ended up going up your way instead for a couple of days and roofed a freaking house with my dad. Like,
oh, well, so probably not the travel for you so much as roofing a house.
To be honest, it's the travel. Yeah, just getting back today, this morning, being gone a whole week and like not sleeping good anywhere. Yeah, man.
All right.
But we're here for you. This is why we're here. For the little flockers, man.
And we're here after watching the Broncos defense give up 70 points. I can't get enough of talking about this because it is that kind of performance that we need from the Broncos defense consistently throughout the season to really fulfill my wish this season that it not be on Russell Wilson for the Broncos, because I want the Broncos to be bad. Let's not get that wrong.
Yeah.
And I want Sean Payton to look bad too, because my opinion about Sean Payton has gone down a whole lot coming into the season, and I want to see him fail personally. But I want to see Russell Wilson have enough success in spite of Sean Payton and that Broncos defense to where the spotlight isn't on him. And week 3 for the Broncos, it was the perfect mix of all that.
Yeah, you got a little bit of all of it. If that was your where your heart's at when it comes to the Broncos, and I think that's where your heart ought to be, Brandon. I think you're in a good place when it comes to how you feel about the Broncos. Interesting to see Bronco fan reaction, man. Like Bronco Jared, he's in a tough place right now, man. We should all think about him for a minute.
Yeah, well, he can. Have you turned him on to the Brandon Perna videos? So that way, at least he can recognize some of his own feelings in the sadness of a fellow Broncos fan.
Oh, yeah, he's a huge Perna fan. And I think at some point, even the elixir of humor doesn't help it when you give up 70 burgers.
No, that's just pure pain.
Pure fan pain.
And I'm okay with Jared feeling that a little bit.
I mean, I'm not feeling too bad about it for him, like it's going to be fine. And by fine, I mean, I'm going to feel great as they lose a crap ton more games throughout this season.
Yeah, you got to stick it to him, man.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we focus more on the Broncos because I don't really want to talk about the success of the 49ers right now, or the fact that the Arizona Cardinals might not be bad and beat the Cowboys in week 3. I guess at least the Rams might actually be bad, but it's because Stafford had his one healthy game this season, and now he's fighting through injuries for the rest of the year.
There you go. Thank you to the Bengals for knocking the Rams back to where they belong. That felt good.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be worried about the Cardinals. They are legit bad. They'll continue to be bad, and they will be bad for as long as we probably do this show. It's just kind of, death taxes. Cardinals suck.
And the Cowboys are one of those teams that I think are susceptible to reading their press clippings and buying into it and thinking that they don't have anything to worry about, and then finding out that, oh, yeah, maybe we can't just coast through bad teams like the Cardinals.
I mean, it was a stunning loss, but it wasn't stunning, if that makes any sense.
Right. And I don't mind that Cowboys fans get to feel that a little bit either, while we're talking about opposing fan bases that really don't have much to do with the Seahawks, but who we all have maybe a little bit of sports hate for.
Oh, yeah. A lot of bit of sports hate for the Cowboys and that fandom. But
I might have more sports hate for the Cowboys than the actual division rival Cardinals.
Yeah.
Huh.
That tracks.
Yeah.
That feels right.
Mm-hmm. You gotta gauge your sports hate sometimes just to feel what you feel.
That's right. You should, every year, you should probably, as a fan, do a sports hate rankings just to, make sure that your Hawkers right and that things make sense. Yeah, man.
Niners, top of the sports hate list, followed by the Rams.
But I think either of those are acceptable answers.
Yeah, you can flip flop those, and it varies based on the success of either one of those teams.
Mm-hmm.
Do we need to talk about Taylor Swift at all? It seems like she's into football here lately.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think we'd be doing our job as podcasters without. I feel like every single sports talk show has had like a minute or two or more, maybe a whole hour carved out for Taylor Swift talk.
Hey man, keep getting them checks, I guess. Like I'm sure that a lot of the Swifties are tuning into all the, pitter patter about, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, whatever, man. Just neat. I hope they're happy. Or
where
not,
are our Swifties at, Adam? Where is the crossover of Seahawks fans and Taylor Swift fans? There's got to be crossover.
Oh yeah. Well, she has just so many darn fans. There'd have to be.
I want to hear from the Swifties. We have 317 members of the flock at getintheflock.com. Are there 8 Swifties who have not yet become a member of the flock that can help us get over the 325 mark? Head on over to getintheflock.com. Let us know if there's some Taylor Swift crossover. And thanks to our executive producers, DCH, Becca Christensen, Brian Shaw, and JC Schilling.
Big shout out to Becca DCH for being at the game. Still upset for Brian for not calling in a bomb threat to his work. Whatever, I'll let it go. JC, you do get the continent's excuse, so that's cool.
You weren't
that's cool.
on the same continent, so you can have a pass.
That's right. But a lot of fun with DCH. I wish I could have hung with Becca a bit more, but appreciate these guys coming out to the game, man. That was awesome.
Yeah, thanks to Becca for coming up from California, and thanks to Becca, the awesome artwork that she gifted us here in this off season, and a thanks to Stephen Kirkpatrick, who came in at 37-27 via Zelle, always coming in with the wins. Thanks, Stephen.
Hey man, appreciate that. Go Hawks, buddy. And yeah, I like the win total numbers. Like those always make a lot of sense to me, especially with a high flying offense like that. That's helpful for our bottom line. Thanks, Gino.
Thank you to Gino. Thank you to Steven. And also thank you to Brian, because he did say that while he was in Denver, he did watch the game with some of the Mile High Seahawkers, and he did do some recruiting for us and our members of the flock. And we have Nick coming in for the entire year saying, so excited to be part of the Mother Flockers. I started listening after the Russ trade, and I have never missed a week. I needed to get in to raise the Hawkra before my freeloader grace period is over. As someone who is a self-employed chef, I know the struggle, and I need to do my part to keep Adam out of the mill. Also, anytime I see an article by Adam Schultz, I assume this is a pen name that Brandon and Adam use when they collaborate on something. I will be at the Carolina game on Sunday and excited to be a part of the flock. F the Lambs, F the Whiners, and I feel like I'm forgetting something. Oh well, no big deal. From Nick.
I appreciate it a ton, Nick. Yeah, the self-employment thing is its own little beast there, and but appreciate you being able to donate like that, because it's tough when you're self-employed, man. So I see it from you too, man. That appreciate that a ton. Yeah, you heard it here first. Wherever those Adam Schultz checks get sent for those articles, I got a different address for you. So just write into seahawkerspodcast@gmail.com, and I'll get that taken care of for you. Get those checks off your hands.
That might be the pseudonym that we have to use under the business name now, because that's kind of fun.
Yeah, and then at some point we're going to be so big we're going to need a shell corporation, and I think Adam Schultz should be the CEO.
Absolutely. The Poetrist in at $145.44, the annual 12/12 donation. Welcome to the flock, to the Poetrist.
The Poetrist? Like a poetry person?
I think so.
That's cool, man. That's a pretty cool handle name. Very unique. Appreciate it, Tom, man. Thanks for getting in the flock and supporting the show. And like we say, it's the value for value thing. Obviously, they find a lot of value in this, man. A full year, dude, that's amazing.
A full year at the 12/12, including Tom Morgan, who came in at the $3 level for the full year, $36. Welcome to the flock to Tom.
Hey, welcome to Tom. Hopefully he can be a little better in the Pick'em League than I've been so far. It hasn't been looking great.
We'll get to the Pick'em League here in a minute. We want to thank Hawk and Balls, who came in at $4.50 Canadian a month. Welcome to the flock to you too.
That's awesome. Anytime you put balls in the name, you got my attention. Good job, man. Appreciate it.
That sounds like a Pick'em name right there, in fact.
Yeah, it does. Solid.
And who do we have? Oh, look at this. Brian Shaw finished with 13 picks correct. We had 7 different flockers come in with 13 correctly picked games. Hotlanta Hawk, Yaki Hawk, Dookie Bear, What the Flock, the Lock of Love, Everett Crow, and Brian Shaw. It was Everett Crow with the tiebreaker and the 13 picks correct. So congrats to Everett on the week 3 win.
Man, big props to Everett. What a tough week to win, too. There was a lot of games that went kind of sideways that you didn't see coming. So I don't know how that many people predicted 13 right, but I don't know, man. You just get with them for financial advice or something.
Yeah. Cheating, maybe?
Yeah, maybe it's cheating. We'll get Evie on it.
All right, let's look at the overall Pick'em League standings in terms of points, because now that we're through 3 weeks, I'm curious to see who is finding their way at the top of the league. At the top of the league, we have Andrew Rasband, Blind Squirrel, Boboing, For Hawk's Sake, Great Rolls of Fire, Hotlanta Hawk, and Luke Sim. Oh, we got more names here. Quandre 3000, Spooning with My Love, Yaki Hawk. So we've got about 12 different flockers here, all at the top of the leaderboard, within just a few points of each other, and some fun names up there, some names I recognize. We got Boboing. I don't think we talked about Jake Bobo enough through the start of the show and his first touchdown catch.
Yeah, we talked about it quite a bit in the recap, right? The live recap. But yeah, give Bobo his flowers, man. More Bobo, please.
More Bobo.
Especially when it ends in touchdowns.
More toe tap touchdowns. I could do with less throwing from one side of the field to the other in a rainbow catch to Tyler for a 2-point conversion, but it was also fun.
That was super exciting and awesome play by Tyler. But a little less pucker factor even on successful plays would be nice.
All right, Adam, let's make your picks for this week 4.
All right. I got all the winners right here, dude. They're locked up right up in here.
Locked up. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Kicking things off with the Thursday night game, Detroit and Green Bay. And just so I'd keep you honest, I did get your pick before we started recording. Detroit Lions. Going with the favorites.
I'm feeling good about that one.
That's one's feeling pretty much like it's a lock right now. But Absolutely. How about this next one? Jacksonville at home against Atlanta.
This should be an easy pick, but
it should be. But Jacksonville, you wouldn't have thought that they'd lose last week.
Yeah, no, they have looked fairly disjointed. Trevor hasn't looked quite as good this year as he had last. Atlanta, building some positive things. I don't know. Did I hear that Bijan got hurt in the last game, or was he just kind of bottled up a little bit? But they've been running the snot out of the ball.
Bijan not on the injury report right now. Only see Cordero and one of their wide receivers.
Okay. So, yeah, if they have Algier and Bijan, I'm going Falcons.
Ooh, risk pick territory, 24% with the Falcons.
Whoa, seriously?
Yeah.
That's a coin flip game to me.
Baltimore going into Cleveland and that scary looking Cleveland defense.
Yeah, defense looks good. Deshaun Watson looks like garbage, which is what he ought to look like. I mean, you are who you are. But so I'm going with Baltimore here.
Cincinnati. Thank you for beating the Rams. Now you go and you face the Tennessee Titans. That's going to be in Tennessee.
Against Cincinnati?
Yeah, Cincinnati, Tennessee. How come I don't see Joe Burrow on the injury report? Isn't he dealing with something?
Yeah, he's still doing the calf thing. And then, I don't know, man. That Cincy offense, I watched a bunch of their game this last week against the Rams, and they're just kind of broken right now. I mean, T. Higgins couldn't catch a cold last week. I mean, he dropped like 15 balls. He looked like Kadarius Toney out there. They're kind of slumping right now. They're in a bit of a funk. Tennessee always fights hard. Henry has a big day. It's Tennessee.
Wow, another risk pick. Only 16% going with the Titans. Denver Broncos at Chicago Bears. The game of the week.
Oh, man, this is the toilet bowl for sure this week. I heard that there were tickets available for under $2 to this game. I probably would do it if I were in the area. I mean, heck, if you get a ticket for cheap just to see that level of ineptitude out on the field, that might be historic. That might be one of those. I remember where I was when I watched those two teams go up against each other, Bears and Broncos. So yeah, tough go there.
This might be a Justin Fields breakout game.
After talking with EJ, I think he was more down about the world than Jared was. So I'm going to go Broncos here. I think the Bears might be officially completely broken.
Wow. Only one home team so far through 5 games. That may not change here with the LA Rams going on the road to Indianapolis and facing the Colts.
I'm going to pick this with my heart more than anything, but I do think that this is about a coin flip game right now. So I'm going with the Colts and Minshew Mania, man. He's just been out there doing professional quarterback things. He's going to do more of it.
It's a coin flip game in terms of the way the picks have been going. 55% with the Colts to the 45% for the Rams. Another coin flip game, Miami at Buffalo.
Really? That's a coin flip game?
Buffalo is looking good.
I hate this. I hate this pick so much.
This is why it's a coin flip game. Everybody gets to this one and they go,
no. I know what I should pick, but I just don't think I can bring myself to do it. Buffalo. Can't do it. God, I hate the Dolphins so much.
You do hate the Dolphins so much. Minnesota at Carolina. Will Minnesota finally be able to get a win on the road against the Panthers?
Yes. Kirk Cousins is getting it done. Not prime time.
Tickets starting at $228 for this game. Can that be right? What are the Carolina Panthers so excited about? I guess maybe because Minnesota hasn't won yet?
I don't know. Is Bryce Young returning? I have no idea.
He is not on the injury report from what I can see. I don't know how up to date CBS is on their injury reports because they didn't even have Joe Burrow on there. So take that for what you will. You got Minnesota. Pittsburgh at Houston.
I like Pittsburgh D right now. They're playing good ball. They're playing real good ball. TJ Watt looks like a monster. Highsmith on the other side. He's a heck of a player. Their offense has a crap ton of questions. So I think I'm going to go with Pittsburgh here, but I don't feel great about it. Stroud's been balling out as a rookie, man.
Yeah.
He's been easily the best rookie QB.
Yep. Slinging it all over, but yeah, it's going to be tough against Pittsburgh. 84% agree with you. Tampa Bay at New Orleans. Interesting matchup.
I like Tampa.
Yeah. Down with Baker.
They've had a little more offense. Yeah. And I don't know if Carr's even going to be back.
No, and they struggled with Jameson there. They couldn't even hold a 17-point lead against the Packers.
Exactly.
Carr, yes, he is questionable according to CBS.
I mean, that's been his whole career, but
he's questionable. This one, not a coin flip game. Philadelphia at home against the Commanders.
Yeah, that's Philly.
Chargers at home against the Vegas Raiders. Jimmy G, concussion, questionable.
Yeah. And who is their backup? Because it's not Stidham anymore.
No, it's O'Connell, I think is his name, the rookie quarterback.
Okay. All right. You know what? The Chargers usually do get some garbage games throughout the year. This is one of them. Chargers win.
Might be a garbage game here for the San Francisco 49ers as they face division rival Arizona Cardinals in Santa Clara.
In Santa Clara?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the Niners.
Tickets starting at $91. San Fran against a gimme win team.
Well, everything there is 7 times higher than it ought to be.
Yeah, that's those people not wanting to deal with the traffic and parking situation in Santa Clara. That's why $91 tickets.
There you go. That might be it.
I'm assuming you got the Niners.
Yeah.
No back-to-back upset weeks. How much fun would that be for Arizona to beat the Cowboys and then beat the Niners?
All the fun. So I'm not going to try to jinx it by picking them.
Okay. Yeah. Dallas, an opportunity for a bounce-back game at home against the New England Patriots.
I kind of like the Patriots in this one.
Yeah.
The little stretch of Cowboy struggles here. Zeke Elliott going back and running it down the throat of the Cowboys. He had a big game last week.
Ooh, I kind of like that.
I'm going Patriots.
Third risk pick of the slate of games. Only 8% agree with you.
Takes big balls to get blue chips, buddy.
Kansas City at New York Jets. This would be a risk pick if you were to go for the Jets.
Yeah, no, I'm good on that one.
All right. And finishing things off, we know you are picking the Seahawks on the road on Monday Night Football against the Giants, but 23% actually picking the Giants for the straight up win.
There's a lot of delusional people in the city of New York, that's for sure. So
only 6 home teams you're going with. I wonder if that bites you this week.
I don't care about home and away for the most part anymore. It's not a big thing in the NFL these days until you get to the playoffs.
I normally don't ask you the tiebreaker, but because it is Seahawks Giants, what do you think the total points would be for this game?
Combined total points?
Yeah.
52.
All right. We did it. We got Adams picks in, everybody. Everybody celebrate. Adam did it.
2 weeks in a row before the games happen.
In the mailbag, we've got Hank Sink from Cole Township, Pennsylvania, at ColeHawk1 on the X.com handle. Great job doing your part spanking the kitty yesterday. I'll take it from here at MetLife next Monday night. Pre-game work started with boosting the Hawkra, pulling out the laptop, and updating my Pick'em team name to G Knows Best. The 12s are showing that they can do their part of the team effort. I'm looking forward to your flagship show to turn up the volume. Only one thing left to say, go Hawks.
Go Hawks, man. Yeah, if you guys can bring it there in MetLife about half as much as they did in Seattle this last week, you'd be doing a heck of a job. The fans were lit in Lumen Field.
Going into this game, Seahawks fans had actually dropped below the Arizona Cardinals' false starts in their home stadium until this past week against the Panthers. With the 8 false starts, we are back in the lead ahead of the Arizona Cardinals. Why is it the Arizona Cardinals have the second most false starts? It's baffling.
Because it's boring there, and so you lose concentration, and then you false start.
The best explanation I think you could come up with.
Absolutely.
Because it's
plus
not
the place
loud.
is cursed.
It's cursed, yeah. Yeah, you have the ghosts of former Seahawks players coming up out of the ground and making offensive players jump.
Do you think that the bad burial ground is like in the turf that rolls in and out of the stadium, or is the stadium itself just kind of built over top of that?
Like, could
I
you
think the
put in
remains are
some
in the
kind
turf
of
that roll in and out? Yeah.
You think you could maybe place a ghost barrier as part of the turf that rolls in and out? Like the actual tray could be some kind of barrier?
Yeah, some paranormal barrier.
Yeah, like
magnetic field or something.
That tray out of salt. Because that's what keeps ghosts away,
now you're
right?
Thinking. Yeah. Okay. We solved the curse of the Arizona Cardinals field. There it is.
There we go. We just need it for when the Seahawks play in Arizona for there to be some sort of heist to swap out that tray, that barrier that goes between the field and the actual ground. And
right. And to engineer a salt one and put it in there.
It could take some work, but do you think we can get it done in time for this show?
I know we have to, Brandon. We have to. There is no try. It's either do or do not.
See, I've been watching Breaking Bad again, and it just reminds me of the entire heist of trying to get the laptop fritzed out. And it feels like that kind of work that it's going to take from us. Or maybe like a train robbery, for instance. Maybe that would be easier than what we've proposed.
Well, yeah. Plus, you're in the American West in the desert. Yeah, it's got to be more akin to a train robbery, for sure.
Probably. Yeah. What do you say we get into some do better and better at life?
All right, man. My do better this week is for Mike McDaniels of the Miami Dolphins. He had an opportunity to kick a field goal to at least tie the most points ever hung on a team in the NFL, and he declined it. He didn't go after it. They just didn't do it. My dad put it best. He's like, I don't know how many more years I got left on this planet, but I wanted to be able to say I was there. I saw that game live when it happened, when the Broncos were completely and totally humiliated and had the most ever points hung on them. Now, keep in mind he's a Chiefs fan, but I'm with him on that one. Mike McDaniels, you're a foot on the gas kind of guy. Do better.
Yeah, his thought process after the game. He seemed to put some significant thought into why he should and shouldn't do it. I don't know. Unless you go and you win the Super Bowl with this Dolphins team, you're going to look back on this with a moment of regret and say that, well, we could have at least had one thing historic to come out of this season.
Yeah. Just screw up. Plus, that's extra humiliation for the Broncos.
My do better this week is for, can we stop the conversation about Kirk Cousins going to the Jets?
Nope, you got to trade him to the Jets. You got to.
I feel like every single analyst on every single show, they've come out and gone, you know what? I have a great idea of a trade opportunity that needs to happen for this year. Just hear me out here. Kirk Cousins to the New York Jets. The Vikings aren't going anywhere. The Jets they have a Super Bowl roster. Look, this is not going to happen. And like, unless the Jets have a trade package where they're willing to really throw at the Vikings, I don't see it happening. And also at this point, through 2 weeks of the season, ever since Aaron Rodgers has gone out, everybody in the world has now proposed this particular trade. You're not inventive by coming up with this trade. For everyone from this point forward, proposing it, do better.
My question is, what significant assets do the Jets want to part with? I mean, that would be the crux of it, right? Like, I don't know what it would be. You're not going to give up any of your young up and coming players for Kirk Cousins for a season, maybe two, and be hitting the Kirk Cousins ceiling. And then if you're not going to get anything back of much value, if you're the Vikings, what are you doing? Like, he's the best player on your team right now. Well, that's not true. Second best player on the team. Yeah. I think that if the Vikings aren't going anywhere, they may want to get something, but for a relatively young Jets team, I think you have to take the big picture into account and not give up anything big and say, yeah, it sucks that our quarterback went down, but we have a young quarterback that we drafted number 2 overall that we have to try and develop at this point. If something falls out of the sky in terms of quarterback that can actually make the team better, then you have to look at it. But yeah, it sucks. And that's why I think that once your starting quarterback goes down, there's not a whole lot of options throughout the league because there's just not a lot of quarterback depth around the league. And yeah, unless you're talking about giving up major draft capital, it doesn't. You already gave up some for Aaron. So what are you doing?
You can't.
Yeah, I think that's throwing good money after bad.
It is, and I
don't think the Vikings would be interested.
And with the way that the Bills are looking, with the way that the Dolphins are looking, I think you might just say, hey, this is a development year for the team. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
But I can understand Jets fans who are like looking for any other possible option. Because when you have a Super Bowl caliber defense, you want to have the offense to match with it.
Yeah. Well, why don't you have all the Jets fans call Broncos fans and ask them about making trades to desperately pair a decent quarterback with their historic defense? So see how that goes for them.
Where are all of the calls for like Kirk Cousins? Okay, fine. But why don't you hear more talk about Russell Wilson? Like, get him out of the bad situation in Denver with Sean Payton. Send him to New York.
I mean, that's a bit more realistic. You're probably not going to have to give up much to get Russ. I think Sean Payton would be, yeah, sure, I'll go sit him, whatever. Right. And then you got to see if Russ would restructure things, maybe take a little less money like Aaron did. That honestly makes a tiny bit of sense. There's an actual creative trade, Brandon. You're smarter than all the other pundits.
I hear Sierra really likes New York City.
That's true fact.
I feel like that's been a meme like ever since that he was in Seattle. So
it's true. And I heard the market for houses with 14 bathrooms is just off the hook in Denver right now. He can get rid of that house in a second.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
On to Better at Life.
Better at Life and Skip Bayless this week for me, Brandon, is also Mike McDaniels. He hung 70 points on the Broncos, and it was hilarious. Listening to poor Jared over text or read his text and just the absolute misery, watching Perna's video just with all of the misery, knowing all of the misery that's coming out of Broncos country. How's the ride?
Catfish
is Mike McDaniel's better at life than Skip Bayless.
Maybe with enough of these, you'll actually get Mike McDaniel's name right, because it is not plural, or it is not with an S. It's Mike McDaniel.
Oh, well, I said it was plural this week because he was both do better and better at life. To
Mike McDaniel's week to shine on the Seahawkers podcast.
Yeah. See, I thought I was saying McDaniel before, and for whatever reason, I thought I'd looked it up and felt like I was getting it wrong. So I switched. So I guess I'm just still wrong. I'll get it better one of these days.
The problem is you have Josh McDaniels and Mike McDaniel. It's tough to get them mixed up.
Exactly.
All right. Well, you give your better at life honors to a Dolphins head coach and a former Niners coach. I'm going to give my better at life to one of our own members of the Seahawks, Ken Walker, K9, getting offensive player of the week for his performance this week. 97 yards, 17 carries. He's got 2 touchdowns. And Adam, I'm fired up to think about the idea that maybe we have our goal line back. It was Ken Walker all the time. 3 straight plays, hammer it in from the 5-yard line. The Seahawks get the touchdown with him. And K9, my better at life than Skip Bayless this week.
Dude, there was maybe no better moment in that game than just jellying it in from the 1 3 times in a row. Like, yes. That's exactly how I want football to be played. K9 had a great game. And it was cool, too, to see Charbonnet have a little bit of a coming out party and not necessarily be thunder and lightning, but they do have different styles. And to have that change of pace was awesome. But Ken Walker with his touch is electric.
While we're recognizing Seahawks for getting national recognition, you have Ken Walker with the offensive player of the week, and you have Zach Charbonnet with the angry run of the week, blowing up the Carolina Panthers defender and sending him, what was it, 5 yards back? We did talk about it on the post-game show, but yes, the fact that both of these players were recognized with national honors, very important.
I mean, to be fair, that DB was a smallish one, but still sent him flying. He gave him the Cam treatment. I loved it.
Well, great week for our Seahawks, getting the win and moving to 2-1. Man, oh man, it sure would be nice to go into this bye week, especially starting off the year with a loss, to go into the bye week at 3-1 and then hopefully get right in terms of injuries then as you pick up after the bye week and you know what, head all the way on into the playoffs.
3-1, 2-2, either way, you're right in the mix. 3-1 definitely feels better, but yes, up until the bye week here, I feel pretty good about this team as a whole, and it's exciting to see, or I'm excited to see what the growth will be throughout the season, because we do know, Brandon, that Pete Carroll's teams generally get better throughout the course of a season, because he's going to win the game in the fourth quarter like we did this week against the dirty Panthers, spank the shit out of the kitty.
And I think with that,
there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.